At 63, Audrey Hepburn finally opens up about William Holden's affairs.
I think I broke my heart there once again. It's such a tragedy because
I've been silent for nearly 4 decades, but at 63, I can't stay silent anymore. I have to tell it all for myself and for everyone the truth about William Holden. Do you really think what happened between us and Sabrina was just acting? Do you believe every glance, every touch was nothing but performance? Do you think that when the director yelled, "Cut," our emotions simply vanished? Then why, even now, whenever I watch those scenes, does my heart still tremble as it did the very first time? Why, after all these years, after marriages, fame, and the passage of time, do I still hear his voice in the long, silent nights? And why, among hundreds of roles in my career, was it only William's eyes that I could never escape from? They said there was nothing between us but work. But if it was just work, why did he call me at 3 in the morning just to say, "I can't sleep because I miss you"? If it was friendship, why did the whole world disappear whenever he walked toward me? Behind the glitter of Hollywood lies a truth it never dared to tell, a tangled bond of love, fear, and betrayal. A mistake that both of us paid for with years of loneliness. And today, I will reveal it all, the 5 tragedies that were never made public, where you'll see how true love can destroy a person completely. The only question is, do you have the courage to listen until the end? I still remember the smell of the early morning mist on the Sabrina set. Paris that day was cold and crystal clear. The lights shimmered on the surface of the Seine, and I, a 25-year-old girl who had just won her first Oscar, still couldn't believe my life was changing. I was chosen to star alongside William Holden. That name alone made the hearts of Hollywood's women tremble. He had smiling eyes, a deep voice, and a way of walking that silenced a room. I thought I was used to the spotlight, but when Holden looked at me for the first time, I knew. Every other light went out. He said, "Audrey, you make the whole world gentler." That line, which I thought was just a flirtatious remark, followed me for the rest of my life. We acted together in every scene until we no longer knew what was real and what was make-believe. I still remember that night at the Paramount studio. When the director yelled, "Cut!" I just stood there, still looking into his eyes as if the scene had never ended. They said I was naive. Perhaps they were right. I had never truly loved anyone until I met him. But I also never understood loving someone who already belongs to another is the beginning of a wound that never heals. Holden had a wife, 3 children. Every time he left the set, I was left with an empty room, a mirror, and the faint scent of his cologne lingering on the jacket he'd forgotten. I held it close as if I could hold on to my own foolishness. One night, he knocked on my door. He said nothing, just looked at me for a long time, then whispered, "Audrey, if I could start over, I'd do everything differently." And I believed him. I believed that love could change everything, even fate. We hid our affair like a secret behind studio walls. Lights off, a stolen kiss in the dark, the hurried footsteps whenever someone knocked. I wasn't afraid of scandal. I was only afraid of losing him. Hollywood is a place that sells illusions, and I was the one who bought it with my whole heart. I began to dream of a home, of children with his eyes. But I didn't know. That very dream would one day crush me. He often drank after filming. I would sit beside him, hold his hand, and try to pull him back from a sadness I didn't understand. Some nights he laughed, then suddenly fell silent, staring into the distance. I've seen too much, Audrey. I don't believe in happiness anymore. I thought love could heal a broken man, but the truth is, they often drag you down with them. When the film wrapped, the director threw a farewell party. I watched him dance with his wife, his smile flawless for the cameras. And I stood in the corner, realizing that Sabrina wasn't just a role in my career, it was the first chapter of a curse. I didn't know then that this love would haunt me for the next 40 years, all the way to the end of my life. I still remember that first night in Beverly Hills, the city of illusions. Neon lights shimmered off the streets lined with Cadillacs, and the scent of citrus from the hotel gardens drifted in through the open window. I had just finished a Sabrina press interview, and William was already waiting in the suite on the 8th floor. He smiled, lifted his glass of wine, and said softly, "We found each other again, Audrey." I walked in, my heart pounding like a 16-year-old girl's. There was something in the way he spoke, in that gaze a mix of alcohol and loneliness, that made it impossible for me to turn back. He had a wife. I knew that. I had promised myself I would never let my heart cross that line. But Hollywood has nights so long that people forget where morality ends. We began meeting after every party in quiet restaurants, in small candlelit rooms, and finally, in that suite where the curtains closed and the outside world ceased to exist. I remember the pop of a cork, the sound of wine filling the glasses, the rhythm of his breath as he whispered, "I never believed in love until I met you." Foolishly, I believed that love could save him from himself. He drank to forget the emptiness inside, and I drank his love to fill the loneliness in me. Each morning, I would wake before the sunlight slipped through the curtains. I'd sit up and watch him sleep, his hands limp at his sides, his face marked by the exhaustion of a man who had smiled too much for the cameras. I'd gently touch his cheek, trying to memorize every line, afraid that when I opened my eyes again, he would vanish like a dream. Once I asked him, "Bill, do you ever think about starting over?" He fell silent, then said, "With you, I always want to start over." And I believed him. Believed that one day he would leave his wife, that we would have a small house, a few children, and a garden full of roses. I believed like a child who still believes in fairy tales. But Hollywood has no place for fairy tales. Rumors began to spread. The newspapers wrote about the secret flame between the two stars of Sabrina. I read every line, my heart tightening with each word. Holden just laughed and said, "They always need something to sell papers." Then he poured another drink and kissed my forehead. But in that kiss, I began to sense the taste of deceit. One afternoon, I went to his house. His wife was away. The place was quiet, heavy with the scent of cigarettes and wine. He was sitting before the mirror, staring at his own reflection, as if searching for the man he used to be. "Bill, where's this going?" I asked. He looked at me and gave a sad smile. "You know, Audrey, some people are just not meant to have happy endings." I didn't understand. Not until that night. It was a hot June evening. We were at the Beverly Hills Hotel after a Paramount party. I sat on the bed while he poured the wine. The lights were dim, crickets sang outside the garden, and silence filled the air like a weight. There was something strange in his eyes, half drunk, half afraid. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he feared his own words. "I have to tell you something, before you go too far." I smiled, trying to joke. "What, are you going to propose to me?" He shook his head. "Audrey, I can't give you children." I didn't understand at first. I laughed softly and asked, "What do you mean?" He said it slowly, each word like a knife sliding into my chest. "After our 3 children, Ardis and I decided we didn't want more. I had a vasectomy, and it can't be undone." The room began to spin. The hum of the air conditioner, the clink of the glass on the table, the first drops of rain hitting the window all merged into a mad, discordant symphony. I looked at him, trying to smile, but my lips refused to move. I once dreamed of a home, children's laughter echoing down the hall, a breakfast table with him and tiny hands reaching for the jam. All of it vanished. I stood up, stepping back until my back hit the wall. He came closer, took my hand, and said, "I still love you, Audrey. That doesn't change anything." I pulled my hand away and burst into tears. "You say that because you're used to lying. For you, love is a kind of drunkenness, but I've sobered up." He said nothing. The light reflected off his face, making him look 10 years older. I could see regret in his eyes, but it was far too late. I left that room in the rain, carrying nothing but the coat he'd given me. I ran through the lobby, past the curious faces, through the blur of neon lights, and felt as if a scene had just ended. Only this time, no one yelled, "Cut!" That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the hotel window, staring down at the glowing Wilshire Boulevard. I thought of my mother back in Holland, of the hungry wartime nights, and of the simplest dream I'd ever had to be a mother. Now that dream had been destroyed by the man I loved more than myself. The next morning, the phone rang. It was him. "Audrey, please come. Let's talk. I'm begging you." I said nothing. I hung up and broke down crying. A week later, we saw each other again on the set of War and Peace. He came to visit, to congratulate me on the new role. I was cold, avoiding his gaze. When the crew took a break, he walked over and said quietly, "I know you hate me, but please believe me, I never wanted to hurt you." I looked at him and smiled sadly. "Bill, you didn't hurt me. You just reminded me that happiness isn't meant for those who believe in it too soon." After that day, we never saw each other again. Rumors swept through Hollywood that I had left Holden to marry Mel Ferrer. Maybe they were right. But no one knew the truth, that I was merely trying to survive a love that could never be. I tried to forget him with work, with roles, with the practiced smiles I gave to the cameras. But in every scene, I still saw his shadow. And every time someone said, "Cut," I remembered that night in Beverly Hills, the night when his confession changed everything forever. Sometimes I receive invitations to events he's involved in. I never go. I'm afraid of seeing those eyes again, the eyes that once promised the world, then took it all back with a single sentence. Once, director Billy Wilder asked me, "Audrey, if Holden begged to come back, would you say yes?" I just smiled. "I don't want to live through a scene on repeat, Billy. I've acted in that scene already, and I know how it ends." But in my heart, something was left unsaid. I never hated him. Even though he betrayed me, even though he lied, I remember him with a tender kind of pity. I knew he was imprisoned by his own pain. The man of Hollywood, living in the spotlight, dying in the dark. Later, when I married Mel Ferrer and had Sean, I would sometimes look at that child and think, if Bill knew, would he be happy? I never said that to anyone. I kept it inside, like a letter never sent. There are nights, as I lie in my villa in Switzerland, the wind blowing through the glass windows, when I still dream of him. He's still sitting on that wicker chair in Beverly Hills, holding a glass of wine, looking at me with the eyes of a man who has just lied and is hurting for telling the truth. I want to believe that somewhere, his soul has been forgiven. They say Holden died in an accident, falling down the stairs while drunk. I heard that news many years later and stayed silent for a long time. A friend asked me, "Were you sad?" I answered, "No, I just felt empty, as if a part of me had vanished forever." I know he never forgot me, even though he couldn't be with me. Somehow I could feel it. And maybe that was the only kind of love left between us, a pain that had cooled but still held warmth. There are nights I reopen old photo albums and see the picture of us on the set of Sabrina. We were laughing, looking into each other's eyes, like two young people who believed the future was opening up before them. Neither of us knew it would be our last happy moment. Now, looking back, I don't blame fate anymore. I only feel sorrow for two people, a girl who believed in love, and a man who feared it so much he had to destroy it before it could hurt him. I understood him, even though he never understood me. And maybe if there is another life, I would still want to see him again. Not to love, but to say the goodbye I never said. I learned to be silent as a survival ritual. After that night in Beverly Hills, I buried my cries deep in my throat, wrapped them in shooting schedules, costume fittings, polite thank yous to reporters, and perfectly angled, smiling photographs. I folded my heart like a silk scarf, never letting anyone see the crease. Hollywood always wants fairy tales with happy endings, but I knew I had to write a different kind of ending. No drama, no tears, just a bowed head passing through the crowd, disappearing into an elevator. I thought that would be enough to forget. But forgetting isn't cutting a thread and watching it fall. Forgetting is pulling the thread and realizing it's stitched tightly into every piece of fabric in your life. I got married, became a mother, acted in films, received awards, and quietly declined excessive praise. On set, I sometimes saw his silhouette in an empty guest chair, a kind of soft illusion that made me turn away quickly. At parties, when someone mentioned his name, I smiled politely and changed the subject before the pain could reach my eyes. Mel would hold my hand, never asking, just squeezing gently. Some men love you in a way that helps you survive, and some men love you in a way that makes you shine, then turns you to ash. I knew the difference well, and I chose peace. But peace doesn't mean purity. Sometimes peace is just a truce between wounds that won't heal. News about Bill reached me like quiet tides. A new role, a big contract, then small notes about drinking, about exhaustion, about broken marriages, about a silent house with too many glasses. Hollywood is a city that prints giant portraits in the desert and calls it immortality. But all those giant faces have small, frightened eyes. I never told anyone this, that I often prayed for Bill to sleep long enough to forget the hunger inside him. People say alcoholism is a choice. I think it's a rotting rope ladder that poor swimmers still cling to when they feel themselves sinking. When I heard the news of his passing, I was in Switzerland, in a brightly lit kitchen, on a quiet morning like any other. The sound of a knife against a cutting board, the smell of toasted bread, the radio murmuring unfamiliar headlines. A call came. The voice on the other end was careful, like placing a fragile glass on a glass table. I didn't cry right away. I hung up the phone, washed my hands thoroughly with soap, as if trying to scrub something embedded in my skin, then stepped into the garden. The sky was cruelly blue. When you learn that someone from your past is gone, the sky is always cruelly blue. I sat on a wooden chair, not thinking, not remembering, only hearing my heartbeat steady and normal. And it was that very normalcy that made me feel so unbearably empty. I had loved a storm, and now the storm had vanished in such silence that I didn't know where to begin speaking. I sent flowers. No message because any words would have been too much. People asked, "Would you like to say something?" I shook my head. We had lived the loud part of the story enough. Let the ending be quiet for both of us. In the days that followed, I began to open drawers of memory with a tenderness I didn't have before. The photo on the set of Sabrina, a piece of silk scarf with the scent faded, a letter never written. I thought of those nights in Beverly Hills and wondered, if he hadn't told the truth that day, could we have lied to each other for a few more years? But lies are also a kind of wound. The truth shatters once. Lies fracture you for life. Then I started leaving Hollywood for longer stretches between films. I began to go and see things that never made it onto posters. The eyes of children in silent places, tiny hands waiting for a box of milk, invisible borders between life and death that adults often cross out of selfishness. I visited refugee camps. I learned to kneel down to a child's eye level to speak. I learned to listen instead of deliver speeches. When you've spent your youth being looked at, there comes a time when you crave transparency, to disappear so that others can be seen. I don't know if that was my way of making amends with myself. I only know I needed to take my heart to cracked soil so its beating would mean something. On long flights at night, when the cabin lights go dark, I often look at the blinking red light on the wing and think of Bill's eyes, the ones that shone so proudly before the camera and dimmed so quietly in real life. In that paper-thin moment between sleep and wakefulness, I often whisper, "Bill, are you okay?" There's no answer, and slowly, I no longer need one. Interviewers sometimes ask me about him, in roundabout ways, as if trying to touch an old wound while still being polite. I smile, set down my teacup, and say a few safe sentences. But once in Switzerland, with snowy fields outside the window, someone asked directly, "Did you ever hate him?" I heard the wind brushing against the windowsill like a violin string pulled too hard. I said no. I only hated the feeling of being helpless in the face of someone else's sadness. It's like standing outside a burning house, knowing the door is locked from the inside. The interviewer went silent, then turned the recorder back on. I stayed quiet too, watching snowflakes fall and remembering his shoulders when he was drunk. Those broad shoulders of a man strong enough to carry a hotel room, but not strong enough to carry himself. There was one rare time we almost saw each other again, years before he passed. A fundraising gala, the guest list layered like glittering business cards. I arrived a few minutes late because of traffic. As I entered the hall, I heard someone whisper, "He just left." I paused, my hand frozen on the coat button. And so the universe, mischievous as always, arranged a moment of perfect randomness. We were still two parallel lines, close enough to think we might touch, yet destined never to meet. I went to my table, raised my glass, made small talk, smiled at the right moments. But somewhere behind my ribcage, a small door closed just a little more. There was no tragedy, only soft little clicks, which over time became complete silence. I often wonder what makes some love stories survive time. Maybe it's because they know how to leave space to breathe. And us? We burned all the oxygen in the room, night after night, with promises that never made it into reality. We were each other's most brilliant actors, and we forgot the basic rule. Every stage needs an exit. Without one, people panic, then break the door, then bleed. It took me years to name that truth without my voice trembling. Sean grew up. I taught him how to keep a promise and how to ignore a rumor. I tried not to let my own fears, fear of loss, fear of commitment, settle on his eyes like dust. One night, Sean asked, "Mom, what's the most important thing in love?" I answered after a long pause, "Gentleness." He smiled. "Not loyalty?" I said, "Loyalty is a behavior. Gentleness is a nature. If you have the right nature, the behavior will find its way." I didn't mention Bill, but I knew I was speaking to a part of my past still resting somewhere on a high shelf in my heart. And then, at 63, when the veins on my hands were as visible as dry rivers on an old map, I agreed to sit in front of the camera and share a few things about the days in Paris. Not to defend, not to accuse, just to place a small stone, marking a bend in the river already passed, and ask its permission to keep going. I shared just enough, holding back what needed to be held like someone guarding a fire on a windy night. I said his name with a calm I didn't have before, as if naming a distant star. People said I was brave. I wasn't brave. I had just lived long enough to understand that the truth doesn't kill you. It only kills the illusions. And when the illusions die, there is finally space for the gentlest light to come in. Sometimes, on work trips, I meet young women standing outside the fence, holding out an old photo for me to sign. They speak softly, almost ashamed. I'm in a relationship I don't know how to name. I smile, sign, touch their hand, and offer no advice. Advice is often a hastily drawn map. I only ask, "Do you still recognize yourself in the mirror each morning?" They nod or shake their heads. I know at that age every answer can change overnight with a single rainstorm. I hug them briefly, just enough to say, "You are not alone." Then I walk away, because everyone must find their own exit. Someone once asked me, if you could go back to Paris in 1954, would you walk onto the Sabrina set again? I thought for a long time. In the end, I said, yes. Because even mistakes nourished me, taught me how to pull a thorn from my finger without breaking it. I didn't want to live a sterile life just to avoid pain. I chose a life with scars. Scars tell stories, and if you listen long enough, you'll hear the sea inside them. The other day, I opened the closet and took out an old silk scarf. It had long since lost its scent, now only holding a faint feeling like standing in a room with a window open to an orange grove. I placed the scarf over my shoulders and looked at myself in the mirror. The mirror returned the image of a woman who had passed through the folds of time with quiet pride. I thought, Bill would probably make a joke to ease the awkwardness, then pour a drink, then look at me with those eyes. I smiled at the woman in the mirror and said aloud, very softly, as if to him, "We did the best we could with what little light we had." Then I folded the scarf, put it back in its place, like returning a prayer to where it belongs. On the plane back to Geneva, the sky opened up like a giant, spotless tablecloth. I looked down at the clouds, thinking of little kitchens, children's laughter, missed appointments, and hugs that never happened. I thought of how a life is made of fragments and how we learn to lay them out neatly, so that when someone asks, you can point to each piece and name it correctly. This is hope. This is deceit. This is forgiveness. This is sorrow that has cooled. And this, I touched a finger to the air. This is love. Imperfect, incomplete, but once real. When the plane landed, I knew I had taken a few more steps away from that room in Beverly Hills. Not long strides, not dramatic ones, just small steps. Very small. The kind we often overlook when we're young. But it's those small steps that carry us to the other side. I pulled my suitcase, adjusted my hat, smiled at the customs officer. Outside were unfamiliar faces, lives that would never know the story of me and Bill, and didn't need to. I stepped into the afternoon chill, took a deep breath, and thanked the air for giving me a place to stand still. Somewhere between sky and earth, I thought I heard the sound of a glass gently touching a table, very gently, like a belated farewell from a man who once burned brightly. I didn't turn around. I said silently in my heart, "Sleep well, Bill." And I walked on. I used to think time could soothe everything. But no, time is just a dry cloth. It doesn't erase the bloodstains. It only darkens them. When Bill passed, I thought I had closed the chapter. But with each passing year, I still find myself writing on, in lines no one reads, on a sheet of paper meant only for me and him. After the funeral, I began to write. Not for the public, not for the press, but for him. Letters with no address, no recipient. I kept them in the drawer of the wooden desk at the villa in Tolochenaz, where I lived with Sean. Every letter began with the same line. "Dear Bill, it's raining again today." I never meant to send them. But somehow, I believe those words still found their way to him, drifting through the clouds, across the lands I traveled. In later years, I devoted most of my time to UNICEF. People called me the angel of the children, but really, I was just a woman trying to atone for a youth that wasted too many tears on one man. I no longer stood in front of the camera, no longer needed the lights on my face. I had enough light of my own from the smiles of children in war zones, from the tiny hands that gripped mine when we said goodbye. Once in Somalia, I held a child so thin, it seemed a single gust of wind could carry him away. He placed his hand on my cheek and asked something in his local language. The translator said, he asked, "Is your mother still alive?" I smiled faintly, tears falling onto his face. In that moment, I realized the motherhood I had long yearned for, I was living it now, just not in the way I had imagined. I didn't give birth to them, but I was still a mother. And somehow, I had forgiven fate for what Bill couldn't give me. That evening, as the team left the camp, I sat by the window of the helicopter, watching tiny fires flicker in the distance. Against the dark sky, I thought I saw a figure raising a glass toward me, and I knew it was just an illusion. But sometimes, illusions are gentler than reality. I smiled and whispered, "Bill, I did it. I'm still alive, still loving just in a different way." Back in Europe, I received a letter from an old director. He wanted me to take a small role, the role of a woman who once loved, but now lives with memory. I read the script and smiled sadly. No, I couldn't act what I had truly lived. I folded the script and placed it next to one of the letters to Bill. Both belonged to no audience. One morning, as Sean was getting ready for school, I said, "Do you know why I always keep old photographs?" He smiled and answered, "Because you live on memories?" I shook my head. "No, because I'm afraid that if I throw them away, I'll forget who I once was." I didn't add that in every photo. There's a man still standing in the corner of the frame, blurred but unmistakable. Every time I think I've forgotten, he returns not through a face, but through a sound. The soft clink of a glass, the snap of a lighter, the raspy laugh soaked in whiskey. Those sounds sometimes echo in the middle of the night. I wake up, sit up, heart pounding. Then I realize no one's here. Only the past, stopping by, polite as an old friend. In the winter of 1991, I returned to Hollywood after nearly 2 decades. A television network hosted a tribute to the icons of the 1950s. I wore a simple black dress, my hair in a high bun, no jewelry. As I stepped onto the stage, I saw an old photo from Sabrina projected on the screen behind me. The opening music played, and his image appeared. William Holden, 35 years old, with an immortal smile. The whole auditorium applauded. I stood still, feeling my knees tremble slightly. In that moment, I felt 25 again, standing beside him, hearing him say, "Audrey, you make the world a gentler place." I smiled, but tears spilled down. When the applause faded, I said, "Thank you to those who once walked with me, even just for a short stretch. They left more in me than words can ever express." No one knew who I was speaking of, but I knew and I believed, somewhere up there, he heard it too. When the program ended, I passed through backstage, where warm lights flickered over an old poster. I paused, touched his image, a small gesture no one noticed, but to me, it was a final goodbye. I smiled and turned away. In my mind, I heard the old song he used to hum. "I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places." I don't know why I remembered it. Maybe memory keeps what it wants, no matter how hard we try to forget. After that night, I wrote one more letter, perhaps the last. "Dear Bill, today I stood before your picture and realized at last, I no longer feel pain. I only feel gratitude. Thank you for letting me know what it means to love completely and to lose completely." I still carry that with me, like someone carries a beautiful scar, not hidden, not shown off, just known as part of who they are. I hope, wherever you are, you found the peace I once begged for on your behalf. As for me, I will keep going, not to forget, but to live with everything that was once you. I signed the letter, folded it, and placed it in an envelope with no address. Then I opened the window. Cold wind rushed in, lifting my hair. I looked up at the Geneva sky, thin clouds drifting by, light as breath. I placed the letter on the windowsill, letting the wind take it. It floated, slow, then swift, then vanished into the sky. I stood there for a long time, until the first light of dawn touched the surface of the lake. A part of me left with that letter. The part that remained stayed soft, calm, as if I had finally learned how to live with a memory without letting it hurt anymore.